Hi, I'm Robert Glazer from Ripe Chartered Accountants, and I'd like to welcome Shelley Fishel from the IT Training Surgery. Morning, Shelley.
Good morning, Robert.
Thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right. So I guess it's a bit of a silly question, but why does IT training matter?
Well, Robert, how often have you or someone you know been given something to do and you find that you haven't got a clue how to do it? Or you know how to do it, but you're absolutely sure there's a faster way.
Right.
Well, that's what happens when you don't train your staff. But if you offer your staff IT training, you enable them to do their work much faster and with far more confidence. And the added benefit is taking the frustration out of what they're doing, which makes them happier.
Right. I think I get a feel for what you mean. Do you have examples of that?
Well, let me give you an example about Caroline. She's not real, but we'll pretend she's called Caroline. Okay. She works for a firm of chartered accountants and she supports 3 partners.
Well, I hope you're not talking about my
secretary. No. So Caroline supports 3 partners and they often give her lists of data to analyse.
Right.
For example, they might have something like a chain of coffee shops and they want to find out which shop sold the most coffee, which type of coffee was the best seller.
Right.
And she's doing up to 3 of these for each partner a day. So that's 9 lists. Before she had training, Caroline would have to sort the information, add in a blank row, do the subtotal, prettify it up. It would take her about 25 minutes per list. After she learnt about subtotals in Excel, it takes her 5 minutes per list. So instead of spending 3 3/4 hours on analysing her lists, she now just spends 25 minutes on the whole thing. So she's saved all that time.
Sure. So it's a great investment.
It's a great investment. It makes her able to do more work, get more bills out, and it makes her more valuable to her employer as well.
Yeah, I know that we're always aware that we only use a small proportion of the facilities within a piece of software like Excel or Word.
Yeah, absolutely. Most people do. Most people do.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you work? How does IT surgery work?
We work in several ways. We can run an IT training course and we run IT training surgery. That's its name.
Right.
So a surgery is where we go into a business, we set up a meeting room with a computer, laptop or desktop, and then say it was your staff, they would come in for pre-booked sessions. That's why it's a surgery. They have to book. Okay. Otherwise, it's a waste of everybody's time. But once they've booked a session, they can come into that session with a trainer. They can learn whatever they need. So we match the business objectives by teaching each person what they need, because effectively that's what the business needs.
Right.
So you might have one person learning about Excel, another about PowerPoint, somebody else about Word. And then the best bit is they're away for just a short time so they can get on with more work. And they put their learning straight into practice.
And it's focused.
It's very focused and very targeted.
Is it always face-to-face or do you do it online as well?
This particular kind of training is usually face-to-face. However, last summer I did actually run a kind of training surgery with a chap in New York. Outside of his window you could see the Chrysler building. And he was learning about Excel, Word and PowerPoint over the summer and we did that via webinar, via web technology, and that was great fun. One-to-one via the web was really great fun.
Okay. So how does what you do differ from regular training?
Regular training, we do that as well, and that's where you'd have a group of, say, up to 8 people coming into a training course covering a set outline. So that would be a standard course outline or a bespoke one that's been written to match that organisation's learning objectives. There you've got a group of people and they have to follow that outline, whether it's relevant to them totally or not. Where we run an IT training surgery, everything is absolutely relevant to the individual because it's all one-to-one. So we can do either. We love doing the surgeries because it's so targeted, so focused, and a better return on investment.
Okay, and so is there a program whereby you continuously coach, so that you're always improving the knowledge of an individual's IT skills, or are they one-offs?
What often happens is a company will bring us in to train everybody up to a certain standard. So we might run a series of regular training courses and then we'll follow that up perhaps every 2 months with a training surgery day where people know we're coming in for the day and they know that they can book their sessions. If there's enough people, fine. If there isn't a need that particular month, then we won't go in.
Okay. And do you offer the service or is this part of the service whereby you follow up and check that what people have learnt they are implementing and using?
Yes, we do an online survey at the end of the training course.
Okay.
We ask them what they're going to implement, what 2 things are they going to do, and then 3 months later we email them all and say, are you doing it?
Okay, excellent. That's what I like to hear. Okay, and how do you work with, I'm not very good with all this technology stuff, but how do you work with Apples and Windows and all the differences, and people have all these sort of different sort of mobile devices and iPads, and how do you cope with all that different technology?
Okay, so mainly when people are working, they're working on one computer or another. So the situations that we encounter are people working on Windows computers in the office, but they've got Apple computers at home, or the other way around. They might, quite a number of our clients over the last year, they have Apple computers in the office and Windows computers at home. So we have the mixture. And yes, of course, there's iPads and mobile technology. So we tend to find that Microsoft Office certainly works across both of those platforms. And it's just a case of teaching people where things are and how to do things across both platforms. So if I end up in a course, which I have had, where 5 people have Windows and a couple of people say, oh, but I use a Mac at home, I or the other trainers were able to give them the information of what to do on the other system.
Okay, so it doesn't really matter to you what system they're using, it's the software itself. Okay. And so what happens when you have a member of staff doing something for the first time, and they realise they don't know what to do?
Well, that's quite common, isn't it? A new member of staff comes in. Nowadays, we assume, because everybody surfs the internet, we've mainly got access to computers wherever we go, whenever we want, in the palm of our hand almost. And there's an assumption that because you can surf the internet and send an email, that you can also do a whizzy spreadsheet or a fabulous presentation. And that's not the case. Admittedly, youngsters nowadays do learn how to use the technology at school and are expected to a certain level to use it. However, they don't always have a business application for it. So they might know how to do a formula in Excel, but they might not know where to use that particular type of formula, or where there are more complex things that will do the job quicker. So the question you asked was when they're doing something for the first time. So they'll probably try and muddle through. They might try and look it up on the internet. They'll ask a colleague. And all of this is wasting some valuable working time. Then they'll escalate it and they'll take their courage in their hands and they'll say to their HR manager, can I have a training course? And you'll send them off on a training course. Or nowadays, there are lots of online solutions. And for example, we have an online training solution where people can join as members. And we've got lessons in Word, Excel, Outlook and PowerPoint that they can dip in and out of whenever they need.
So do you find that employers are not interviewing well enough to assess training, IT skills and training needs?
That's an interesting question. Funnily enough, another firm of chartered accountants has just asked me to create a bespoke course specifically for them, for their audit department. And one of the things that we're going to do is use the exercises that we create for that course as an aptitude test for new employees. So they can sit them down at interview and see how much of that they can do by themselves, which will allow them to gauge how much training they're going to need when they start. And we'll then run this course again in the first month of a person joining. They will then do this course, which will give them the required Excel skills that they need.
That's very interesting. I guess I'm as guilty as anyone in assuming that people have the IT skills. And often you'll find, certainly nowadays, where you've got accountancy practices in particular that have been established for 15, 20 or even 30 years, they've grown up with the technology. And so there is an assumption that because the managing partner is usually very technically apt and likes to explore, then there's an assumption that everybody else is the same, and it isn't the case. I've been in companies where they've taken over other practices and they're still using pens and paper to add up their spreadsheets. They're not doing them, they're still doing it in their ledger books. So, you know, can't beat a pencil.
You can't beat, you can rub it out. But no, it is an interesting question as to whether people are not interviewing. My favourite tip is a keyboard shortcut tip to enable you to save your work frequently. And that is on Windows, Control and the letter S, and on the Apple Mac it's Command and S. The reason it's a brilliant shortcut is if you remember Command or Control S and use it every couple of minutes when you're typing away, in the unthinkable when that happens, like a crash or a power cut, we had a power cut last week, my computer went dead, it means that you only lose the part of work since you last saved it.
Right.
So if you've been there slogging away for 3 hours making this wonderful spreadsheet, as long as you've saved it every few minutes, you won't lose all your work.
Yeah, great.
And that's my top tip.
Thank you very much, and thanks for coming in, Shelley.
You're very welcome.
Okay.